The White City of Tel Aviv is a small district in the center of the city, composed of thousands of buildings designed in the Bauhaus International Style, that has been designated by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site for being a synthesis of outstanding significance of various trends of the modern movement in architecture in early 20th century, adapted to the requirements of a particular cultural and geographic context. So what is the international style? How did an architectural movement from Germany take over the design of a significant part of this Mediterranean city? Tel Aviv is actually a 100-plus-year-old chaotic assemblage of all kinds of different architectural styles and concepts. It's a city of jam-packed urbanism, random empty spaces, congested streets, disorganized parking lots, and often saturated in hot and humid city smog. The city was founded in April of 1909 when representatives from 66 Jewish families from Jaffa, who were members of the Ahuzat Bayit Homestead Society, they came together outside the city to purchase and parcel out land in, at the time, mostly empty sand dunes. Also at the time, this land belonged to the Ottoman Empire. Jaffa was an old harbor town where visitors and travelers entered into the country, which was increasing from the end of the 19th century with lots of Jewish settlers. The Ahuzat Bayit wanted to establish a Hebrew urban center outside of Jaffa, and they wanted it to be a clean, hygienic, open, and elegant place by the sea to relax. Regarding what to call this new city, many names were floating around at the time. Yefefia, the most beautiful; Sha'anana, the peaceful one; and Yafe Yafo, the oasis of Jaffa. But the final name the residents settled on was the Hebrew rendition of Theodor Herzl's groundbreaking 1902 novel Alt Neuland, which means Old New Land, Tel Aviv. Tel literally means a mound of ruins or pile of rubble, which signifies the past, while Aviv means the first shoot of a new wheat, as well as springtime, a new beginning, built on a land that was a relic of the past. Many of the 66 families were from Poland and Russia, and they actually initially adopted an eclectic style of design in the new homes that were built. They were single or two-story dwellings with gated gardens. Exteriors were adorned with ornamental aspects such as arches, towers, vaults, and columns that recalled European architecture as well as Art Deco. Many of the decorative elements included Jewish symbols, hybrid Oriental motifs, biblical allegories, and Eastern European neoclassical elements. Most of these families, however, were also secular, bourgeois, educated, and desired to be a part of a prosperous, cosmopolitan, and modern city. They wanted to develop a new urban architectural language that represented a new identity and a new lifestyle, something maybe completely divergent from the life they had come from. By the 1920s, many began to criticize the eclectic style for having unnecessary ornamentation that represented the widening gap between social classes. Many wanted to adopt more of a functional architectural approach and wished to simplify the construction process. From the 1930s onward, many immigrants who came to the city were from Germany or Poland due to the rise of Hitler and growing anti-Semitism in those countries. It was these immigrants who brought the concept of the Bauhaus, which originated in Germany, to new buildings they built in Tel Aviv. Bauhaus style brought exactly what many of the residents were desiring for: a functional approach that tends towards simple geometric shapes, seemingly devoid of external historic references. The style also adapted to the local environment. The pilotis lifted the structures so that the sea breeze can flow through an open ground level to cool the city streets. Horizontal slits were incorporated into balcony balustrades and awnings. Various shadings on facade openings played an important role in limiting the sun's penetration and warming of the building interiors. Modern styles are also often functional and economical, which is suitable for a city that was in desperate need of housing and rapid expansion. About half of all architects that worked in Israel prior to the founding of the state in 1948 had studied at the Bauhaus, such as Aryeh Sharon. Architects like Erich Mendelsohn and Julius Posner also drew inspiration from not only the Bauhaus but also Le Corbusier. By this time, Tel Aviv's population had grown from 66 families to over 120,000, and that will double by the time of Israel's declaration of independence in 1948. However, Tel Aviv was expanding so quickly due to the endless streams of new Jewish immigrants to the city. Arguably, very few things went according to plan as the city rapidly expanded. Israel in general was in a state of rapid growth, and many grand projects fell a little short. Here's the YouTube channel Unpacked with a bit more on this.
The greatest example of this was the new Tel Aviv Central bus station. dubbed the White Elephant of Tel Aviv, a giant structure abandoned for years. It's a microcosm for Israel and specifically Tel Aviv's rapid development in general. Originally planned in the 1960s, it is the largest bus station in the world, which was crazy for a city that only had 390,000 people. The way in which this building's particular construction and size got out of hand is a story that spans decades and weaves through a series of strong personalities, strong dreams, and plans for a modern metropolis. And while its story is one that is still firmly part of the Israeli psyche, it's not the only dream that never became reality.
Why did so many German and Polish Jews who moved to Tel Aviv embrace the Bauhaus movement? Obviously, the answer is complicated, but modernism has this pure approach that eliminates historic elements and what some people claim to be excessive decoration. It establishes this functional, pure concept of a new world and a new life, escaping from historic baggage and trauma. Of course, the modern aesthetic isn't for everyone, but it's understandable why a group of people escaping the horrors of their past lives, especially after generations of violence and oppression, may want to live a life that moves on from that tragic history. I know modernism is a controversial topic, even amongst residents of Tel Aviv. Many wouldn't consider this utopian vision of the city being pure and boxed in with functional geometric shapes as actually representative of the lives of the people who live there. In a way, that a collective vision from the city's founding over 100 years ago, full of historic references and diverse cultural elements, is probably a better representation of what Tel Aviv actually is. However, this doesn't negate the fact that the White City is now the world's largest open-air museum of the historic Bauhaus style. While there were other implementations of the Bauhaus International Style in other parts of the world, such as Europe and North Africa, none of them embody the modernist principle to the extent buildings in Tel Aviv have, and not to the same scale. The building designs are also enriched by adapting to local climate conditions, which is a unique presentation of the modernist style not seen anywhere else in the world. So what do you think? Do you think these modern international style buildings are worthy of preservation? Or do you think they represent too much of an utopian ideal that would never actually work for such a diverse city, and maybe it's time to move on and embrace something more inclusive? Let me know in the comments below.
While Bauhaus is probably one of the styles Tel Aviv is most recognized for internationally, Brutalism had a stronghold on 1960s Israeli architecture. One of the most iconic and perplexing buildings of the Israeli 1960s Brutalist style is the new Tel Aviv Central Bus Station. Check out the video over on our channel, Unpacked, to learn more about the largest bus station in the world.
Thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you to Unpacked for collaborating with me on this really interesting topic. This video took a lot of research. I read a bunch of books and articles on this particular topic, so I'll leave links in the description below. I have a link at coffee.com if you're interested in tipping me like $3 or a little bit more, but of course, no obligation. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.